Hello, good morning. My topic is impact of energy imports on India's economy. India is one of the fastest growing major economies in the world, but behind this impressive growth lies a critical vulnerability: energy dependence. India imports more than 85% of its crude oil and around half of its natural gas requirements. This means that significant of part of India's economic stability, including inflation, growth, and even currency strength, depends on global energy markets. When we add another layer of complexity in the form of geopolitics such as US sanctions and global conflicts, the issue becomes even more serious. This raises an important question: how can India truly become a global economic power without achieving economic independence? To understand this issue, it is important to look at India's energy structure. The country relies heavily on oil for transportation, coal for electricity generation, natural gas for industries, and fertilizers. However, domestic production of oil and gas is limited, and although renewable energy is growing, it is still not sufficient to meet demand. As a result, India depends heavily on imports from countries such as Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Russia. This dependence creates a situation where external factors beyond India's control can significantly impact its economy. The economic implications of this dependence are substantial. First, it increases the current account deficit. As large as amounts of foreign exchange are spent on importing energy, this leads to higher demand for dollars, which can weaken the Indian rupee. Second, rising global crude oil prices directly contribute to inflation in India. When fuel prices increase, transportation costs rise, which in turn raises the cost of goods and services across the economy. This is known as cost push inflation. Additionally, the government often faces fiscal pressure as we need to reduce taxes to provide subsidies to control fuel prices and protect consumers. For example, whenever global crude prices surge, petrol and diesel prices in India also rise, affecting households as well as business. The situation becomes even more complex when geopolitics comes into play. One of the most important examples is the impact of US sanctions. In the past, India imported as a significant amount of affordable crude oil from Iran. However, due to the US sanctions on Iran, India was forced to stop these imports and shift to other suppliers, often at high prices. This increased India's import bill and reduced its flexibility in choosing cost effective options. Another example is the Russia Ukraine conflict. Western sanctions on Russia disrupted the global oil supply chains. India responded by purchasing discounted Russian oil, which helped reduce cost. However, this also created a challenge such as payment difficulties due to financial restrictions and diplomatic pressure from Western countries. In such situations, India has to carefully balance its economic interest with its international relationship. This clearly shows that in India's energy decisions are not purely economic. They are deeply influenced by global power politics, which limits policy independence. This makes independent dependence a serious strategic concern. India energy is not a resource; it is a foundation of economic and national security. Heavy reliance on imports exposes India to supply disruptions, price volatility, political pressure. It can lead to instability, rising inflation, reduced growth. More importantly, it limits India's ability to make independent policy decisions. In simple terms, if a country depends on others for its energy needs, its economic sovereignty is weakened. To address this issue, India must move towards self-reliance through a multi-dimensional strategy. One of the most important steps in expanding renewable energy is including solar, wind, hydropower. India has immense solar potential and has already set ambitious targets for renewable capacity. Another key step is increasing domestic exploration of oil and gas using advanced technologies. Improving energy storage systems and infrastructure is also essential to support renewable energy as it helps manage supply fluctuations. Promoting electric mobility is another effective solution. Building and maintaining strategic petroleum reserves can also provide a safety cushion during the global disruptions. The transition to energy self-reliance will take time but must be approached in phases. In short term, India can focus on diversifying imports and strengthening strategic reserves. In the medium term, efforts should be directed toward expanding renewable energy and promoting electric vehicles. In long term, India must aim to achieve energy independence through innovation, technology, and sustainable practices. However, this transition is not without challenges. It requires significant investment, advanced technology, strong infra, and efficient policy implementation. In conclusion, India's energy dependence is not just an economic issue, it's a strategic vulnerability. Events such as US sanctions, global conflicts have clearly demonstrated new how factors can influence India's economy. Achieving self-reliance in energy is not about isolating the country in front of the world, rather it is about building resilience, ensuring stability, and maintaining independence in decision making. Thanks.